Good afternoon, card fighters, and welcome back to the Prime Vanguard channel. Today I have a very special reaction video to you, as I'll be reacting to Loopville TCG's video on Baromagnes versus Eugene, taking two decks from the original era of Cardfight Vanguard that have not received a good amount of respect or, any sort of great attention since their initial release. These decks have received two extremely powerful retrains, and I'm excited to see what these decks can do, so I can give my thoughts and opinions on both the card fight and the deck build itself afterwards. Now, something I want to make very clear before I even start this video: everything I state is my opinion. I don't think that I'm better than anyone. I don't think that my opinion is correct. I'm just going to give my opinion on the card choices and things of that nature and discuss on what I think may or may not be better, but that I want to make it clear, it's my opinion. I'm not hating on anyone. With that disclaimer out the way, if you guys enjoy seeing content like this, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Do not forget to hit my notification bell so you guys are always up to date on my newest videos coming out. Alright, so the Eugene player is going to be going first. Starting off her play will be discarding Oswald to go into Kalaris. This is a fantastic grade 1 upgrade for the Eugene ride line, as Kalaris has the ability to let you check top 5 and then add a Dust Storm unit to your hand, which is great since a lot of the new Eugene support, both old and new, is predominantly named Dust Storm. So it gives him a top 5 check at pretty much any card that he wants in his hand. The Baromagnes player also goes into his new ride line. I'm not really too familiar with the Baromagnes side, so as the effects do pop up on screen, we'll read them and learn them together. But Kalaris is about to kick in right now. He plays fronts in his Eugene deck, which I think is correct. I do think that fronts is better, especially after reading the new Eugene. You have the grade 2 that lets you restand one of your front or rear guards, and then your Vanguard also gives the ability to call out 2 new units to a column. So essentially speaking, you should have 4 to 5 attacks in a turn if I'm correct. If you have Oswald, I think that makes 6. It's a very expensive play, but it works. Now he drops Shenri onto the board. I actually did not expect him to, put Shenri down. Is Shenri good with Eugene? I'm not entirely sure. I know that for the deck, soul no longer matters as much. I know you have abilities that cost soul, but you have abilities to also replace the soul that you used. So I didn't know that Shenri was going to be an option for this deck. It's not a Dust Storm card that you could search out in the early game with its ability, and also it doesn't really improve the power too much. While it does let you draw, because Shenri is a fantastic generic card in general, it's not a Dust Storm card that gives you like an insane power boost like some of the other Dust Storm cards do, and not being searchable as well. Now, the Baromagnes player, his grade 1 kicks in, lets him soul charge, and then I think give power to his Vanguard, so he'll be swinging with that. He draws into Forward and Revertus, a very good, strong, generic card. Excuse me. Alright, and the new Eugene comes in. So, Ronad, the grade 2, has the ability when written upon by Eugene. You put Energy Blast 3, draw 2, and put a card from your hand to the soul. So yeah, another card that boosts up our soul. So we have 0, 1, 2, and then we have 3 additional cards in soul because of the Shenri and the... No, 5 additional cards because of Shenri and Ronad. The Durgam comes in, and this is the card that I was discussing about earlier. The unit that applies the restand effect to one of your front or rear guards. And this is going to... Okay, so it's a skill that gives itself. Eugene counts itself as heavy artillery Dust Storm Eugene, which I figured. Same thing as other the Baromagnes does. Dustin's gonna kick in. That was the card I was talking about that gives you all the soul. So yeah, we have all this extra soul, and I guess I'm just trying to figure out on why we wanted to. We just lost another copy of Oswald, so we're down 2 Oswalds. Oh, we can't make a full column. That's not good. I mean, he can. And he can't boost with the Durgam either because he didn't play in order this turn. He doesn't have a reason to, considering the fact that the opponent doesn't have any rear guards. So even if he did have, Heavy Dust Storm, it wouldn't matter. Eugene's about to kick in, so Counterblast 1, Soul Blast 1, check top 5, call 2 grade 3 or less units to the same column, which is a very powerful skill. And then if he was a grade 3, all the units called out would have gone 5k, as well as the Vanguard. Now, he called the Oswald out, but he called Oswald out behind the rear guard, so that Oswald is now just a vanilla 8k throughout the entirety of the game. That's not good. The Dustin gets to restand, so we just did 1, 2, and then we have 2 more attacks this turn. So 4 attacks for the turn for the first grade 3 turn. That's not bad, considering what old Eugene used to do. That is definitely a huge upgrade on this part. The Barrow player, though, is skyrocketing in damage. That is not good at all. And we don't even have our power-up skills active, while the Eugene player is over there building up a nice-sized hand. Sanguinary Tamer kicks in. When rolled upon by a Great Thief Baromagnes card named Soul Charge 2, choose Great Thief as card from your soul and you may call it to your guard cycle. That's actually pretty nice. Get some back your key pieces from the soul. Baromagnes does have some very powerful rear guards. It always did while it was getting supported throughout the years. I'll give it that. One of the new ones here, Hardening Insight. When this is placed in your rear guard circle, you Great Thief, Great Vanguard, Baromagnes card named Energy Blast 2, choose 2 normal units from your drop, put them on the bottom of the deck in order and Soul Charge 2. Alright, another recycle piece for the deck. A double Soul Charge while we're putting back some regular units. So we've lost a crit, a front, and 2 heals, I think, just due to soul charging. A Manadyne comes in. This one's gonna let you double up your soul charges, or increase them by 1. So he has the forward and revertus, which will give him a soul charge of 2 with the Manadyne in play. Alright, so just 2 more normal units. Is he gonna go for the superior calling effect? Yeah, I would think so. I don't think the retire effect really does anything here. The Eugene player has a nice sized hand, and he's got decent units on the board all over the place. The Durgam effect is now, it's just a booster that doesn't do anything unless he retires stuff. The only ones I would get rid of is Dustin or the Grey 2, because Oswald's a vanilla and so is the Grey 2. He's going to call from solo. But we've lost 2 heals, a crit, and a front, and then another crit, so I think that we're down 5 triggers? Yeah, we're down 5 triggers right now. Call forward and revertus. He's going to call another Insight. And then Insight, is he going to use the effect to kick in? Okay, so he is. Soul Charge 3, another crit and another front. So at this point, assuming this is a regular deck, we have 1 front left and probably 5 crits left. The Hardening Insights, if you have 15 more cards in your soul, and you soul charge total 3 more times turn, this unit gets power plus 15k. Okay, so those cards become 25k attackers. That is actually really impressive. That becomes way bigger than the Revertus, but he just called another one to soul charge some more, and he just lost another front, another heal. Okay, so we have no more fronts in deck, assuming that we're playing a standard list, and we only have 1 heal trigger left in deck. So yeah, but I hope all of it was worth it. I hope we got to 15 cards in Soul's hand. They have the blocks for the power, so I'm going to assume that he's reached that threshold now. Alright, the first Insight attacks is going to be 25, easy 15k guard. The second Insight attacks, another 25, another 15k guard. Eugene player just dropped double heal, which isn't good on their part. Baromagnes is going to kick in. So we should be able to do all of this. We've got 10 or more, draw a card, get a crit. 15 or more, choose any number of rear guards, and then 2 cards from your soul. Call them out to rear guard circle, they get plus 10k. And then he's going to force all of his opponent's rear guards into the soul, which isn't good for the Eugene player. But I mean, it wasn't the worst situation either, because 2 of those units were vanillas at that point anyway. And then he gets to call 2 cards out. It's very unfortunate that Sanguinary Tamer does not have the ability to boost. If we had the card that let us give boost from the set order, that would actually be a really, really scary column. But I mean, I get it. He did what he had to do to reach that threshold. Critical trigger comes down here, so Vanguard will be swinging for 3 damage. The Insight's going to get some more power. And a grade 2. Critical trigger comes down, critical trigger comes down. So we just lost... yeah, huge crits on both ends. Baromagnes is still making good numbers though. 25, 45, yeah, 45 1 damage. Yeah, that's correct. It's 25, then you apply trigger at 45. Okay, so there goes a crit. A huge loss on the offensive triggers on both the left and the right, but that makes sense. And the Eugene player goes all the way up to 5 damage, with the Stormbrand Dragon being revealed in the deck. I think it's a fantastic card for the new Eugene too. One thing I will say that I have noticed already is the fact that he does use up a lot of his energy. The Eugene player has not gotten past 3 energy throughout the entirety of the game, except when going first. But you have to go first with this deck because, I mean you had to get the power-up skill for it, but it's like... maybe going second with Eugene is better. I don't know, because you then get to activate the order and then you get to unlock all of your power-up skills for this. But he's going to go for the Durgam again to guarantee he gets another attack. We blow up the Insight. Calls the critical trigger out and calls the front trigger out. But he calls them in weird spots so he can blow up the rear guard column. So Eugene's secondary effect will kick in now, so when he calls out new stuff, they're going to have good power. I'm gonna assume he didn't Persona Ride because I don't see the block. But wait, did he Persona Ride? Did he not? Because he has Eugene in hand. What is going on here? Okay, so Durgam attacks. Okay, so he did Persona Ride. It just escaped me for a second. He corrected his rear guards though. Yeah, that's a much better formation. So there should be 5 attacks this turn yet again. The restand from Durgam and the Oswald restand. So Durgam, that unit should only be like 20, and then the rear guard should be 23. The Vanguard will be 31. The Barrow player is at 4 damage though, and it looks like they have 6 cards in hand. I see a heal trigger in there, and I know he pulled a crit, so I know he has at least 30k shield as well as the Persona. So he's got like a 7 card hand, but one of them is fake. So he might have to, but his damage triggers are really low. Yep, I figure. Swinging at the other rear guard. Interesting. They only have like, what, 6 cards in hand now? So they had 7 cards in hand originally, they're going to 6. He protected the rear guard, which is kind of weird, because at this point the Eugene effect is already live, unless he's worried about the fact that he might not have enough cards in his hand to go for next turn. But the forward and reverse is in hand, so if he holds on to that, he will have a next turn to go into with all those cards he has in soul. Calls out the Meteor Flare Dragon. This card's going to become a huge buff. It gets 10k from its own effect because he has no rear guards, and he's going to get additional 5k from the Eugene bonus. So this is the first twin drive with the Vanguard. Oswald kicks in. Oh, he had to swing at the rear guard because Oswald wouldn't be live. Okay, that makes sense. I forgot about that. Oswald needs you to have a clear board to get the restand. And then he pulls the OT, and it's the yellow one at that, so I believe he'll get to draw 3 off of the effect, and then he gets to draw 1 because it's an OT. 4 cards to hand is crazy. And then the dragon is just too big for him to stop. Alright. Woo! That concludes the card fight, you guys. That was a very awesome fight. A great showcase between both decks that have not received a lot of respect, finally being showcased their new powers and abilities in this card fight. I want to say both decks very fantastically. I didn't realize Baromagnes could do all the stuff that Baromagnes did, and I learned some new things about Eugene, especially with the new support for the deck as well as the direction that's going. I think that from watching both fights, I'm more curious to play the Eugene deck, only because for the past like year and a half I've talked mad crap about this deck, but I'm excited to see what the new support's going to do and the direction that some of these players are taking to build it. So we're going to take a look at the first list here. We have the Eugene list available to us. Taking a look at it, this is the Eugene deck with all the new support and the current list that we saw in the match. Now the Eugene player here is utilizing most of the new support from the set. We've got obviously 3 copies of our Persona Ride, that's just a given. We have the new grade 2, which is called Ignite. This is the unit with the ability to Soul Blast 1, rest herself, and then she gets to retire something and then restand if you have 1 or less rear guard. Now this card honestly is just a Dust Storm version of the grade 2 Dino Dragon from the very first or second set that the deck came out. It does matter though about her name because she's a Dust Storm unit, so since you are playing Colaris, you want to make sure you have as many Dust Storms as possible to reap the benefits of the grade 1 in the ride line. So that's why he's just not playing the Dino Dragon or whatever in it. But if you had either one, it would work. They're essentially the same cards, just a name difference, which ended up mattering in this deck for him to search it out. Now, looking at some of the other support in the deck, I do have a couple of questions. So, I guess the main thing here is he's only playing 2 copies of the Durgam. This is the unit that gives you the ability to restand, and I am not entirely sure if I agree with this. And the reason being is because he has 4 copies of the Oswald. I think you can afford a 3-3 split or even reverse the numbers, because the Oswald, when looking at it, can only be useful if you go ahead and put it behind the Vanguard circle. And in your case, he didn't put it behind the Vanguard circle, he put it behind the rearguard circle, he put it in the Vanguard circle later in the game. The Oswald also doesn't take itself off of the board, so unless you play against another deck that has some form of control, I mean the Baromagnes deck did, then you'd have to worry about that, but I don't see that being something to worry about a lot in the future. So maybe you can put the Oswalds down to play more copies of like the Durgams or the Meteor Flare Dragons, because those cards actually put in work. We never saw the Clifton, but I do realize that Clifton is a decent card for this deck. I was worried because this Eugene does not emphasize Soul, and all of your card effects utilize Soul. So I didn't think that Clifton was ever going to be a good card for this deck. But seeing how the deck works and the fact that he does play the Grade 2 Howitzer card, lets you put a card from hand into Soul, and he has Shenri, he has plenty of ways of getting Soul to activate Clifton's ability to get a counter charge later, which will matter because he does play 3 cards in this deck that do counterblast, as well as the Blitz Order, Ambush, Kill Smoke, which I do think is a very interesting tech for this deck, but a very powerful card as well. Speaking of other generic units in this deck, the Meteor Flare I do agree with. This card is a fantastic beat stick for the deck. It can easily get to 10k, it stays at 10k consistently, no caveats or big cost to it as long as you keep the rear guards low. And the Vanguard Eugene does retire at least 3 rear guards. And most decks in Vanguard right now, their strongest units take themselves off of the board anywhere, they convert themselves into Soul. So I definitely see your Vanguard's ability being enough to just clear the board to turn on Oswald and your Meteor Flare Dragon. So Meteor Flare Dragon being a fantastic beat stick for the deck, that works out as well. Only 2 of that in there. I guess that's fine. You know, you can't really get the power up skill. I don't think you get the power up skill until your opponent's Vanguard is at grade 3 anyway, so the 2 Meteor Flares is fine, that's cool. He's playing the grade 2 Howitzer card, which I do think is extremely important for this deck because it lets you put cards from hand to Soul, draw, filter out, and it's consistent 10k beat stick that will be live. Also, it's one of the units that has a skill on place, so when you call it out from the Eugene ability, it will actually make itself into a decent number and then help you, like, you know, filter out your hand during the battle phase, which is always going to be good. So you've got 2 battle phase targets automatically from the Eugene effect when you call them out. The Meteor Flare Dragon and the Howitzer grade 2. I don't know his name, but I know it's like Howitzer or something. So that's automatically good targets for the Eugene effect. The grade 1s, I mean, it's pretty standard. It's going to be the Stormbrand. The Shenri, I already discussed this. I think it's an interesting card to have in the deck. There are other cards I wish I would have saw, but I mean, he values the draw because he's playing fronts in the deck, which makes sense, I guess. But I think that one of the Duststorm cards would have been better because while watching the match, since you play 4, you max out your Oswalds, your Durgams don't hold any value unless you play an order for the turn as boosters, so theoretically speaking, you're going to call out an Oswald predominantly versus anything else. You have Clifton, which can be kind of useful, and then Shenri and Stormbrand, which are useful because Stormbrand on place will use its ability if you have the energy for it. But the grade 1 lineup is pretty interesting. I like it so far. I'll try it myself. The Stormbrand Dragon, I think 2 is okay as well. The grade 1 lineup is pretty interesting. I think it's a great take on the deck. There's a lot of, you know, Duststorm and, you know, cards you could try for your own play style. I'm going to try this route while I take my own chances with the deck, and then obviously, you know, make changes to it later on. Now, triggers, he's playing a very aggressive trigger lineup. I think that's the way that you have to go with Eugene. I feel like Eugene is always going to be on the sort of like aggressive lineup, especially in this variation of the deck now. The Vanguard restands, you have front row restand, you have battle phase superior calling. You know, the deck does a little bit of everything. So front triggers definitely feel great in this deck. I think they were good for him. If they did come up, there would have been multiple times that front trigger would have mattered. I will say draws are kind of iffy in this deck. I might go the draw route in the beginning only because his hand was always on the lighter side in this game because he can never use the best harvest in most cases, and he can't search out the best harvest. I mean, you only play 2 in the deck, which is crazy, but I get it. You know, you want to make space for some of your key units. That makes sense. The Ambush, Kill Smoke, Blitz Order. I agree with that. I agree. I think that we finally have a deck for that card to go into because we're not using up a lot of CB and we have the space for it. And right now with Levy Dross doing everything that does, it actually makes sense to play that card, the Ambush, Kill Smoke. You know, if you guys aren't familiar with what that order does, essentially speaking, you counterblast 1, you give 10k to your Vanguard for the battle, and then you retire the booster at the end of that battle. So against Levy Dross, we already know the implications of that. Clear out some of the annoying boosters that the deck has. That's a big deal. And any of the restanding decks, you know, that's also a big deal. For Shoujo Doji, that could be a big deal against the matchup if the timing works out. I mean, I don't know if the Kiernan skill kicks in first or something does, but that could be a big deal, whatever. Blankmeyer, same thing. Go ahead and knock out those boosters, those bedrocks, those Evoke Alchemist on the first attack. That's a big deal as well. A lot of value in that card in this variation of the deck. Now, unfortunately, I don't have the Baromagnes list. I went to go look for it in the original video, but it is not there within the comment section. So I'm just going to speculate that it's just going to be maxed out copies of all units that we saw. Everything was pretty standard. It had the Swirlers, Amanda 9s, the Heartful Insight, I mean, there's a lot of different routes the deck can go because it is Baromagnes. As long as you reach the, I'm going to assume, I think it's 15 or 20 card limit now in the Soul, you get to unlock this deck's full powers. I mean, that will always be a big deal. It's really be a big deal for that deck. The Heartful Insight seems like a powerful new card. Lets you recycle normal units while also soul charging too. That's very impactful. Your Vanguard does a lot in this new Baromagnes variation. But I definitely want to hear you guys' thoughts in the comment section below. How do you like the performance between the Eugene and the Baromagnes player? Do you think there was a lot of misplays? Do you think there was better things they could have done? And what are your thoughts about the decks right now after their new waves of support? Now, this is my first time watching this card fight, seeing the new decks be played as well. I knew that Eugene was getting support and so was Baromagnes. I played against the Baromagnes deck once personally, but I didn't know a lot about it. I'm curious to hear you guys' thoughts and opinions about that, and let's get a discussion going. Now, with that being said, card fighters, I am your host, Prime Vanguard, and I'll catch you later. Peace.